Hi, everybody. This is Cheryl Kleeman, your Director of Transfer and Student Veteran Success, coming to you live on one of our OK-STATE transfer talks. We are here today with Dr. Doug Hallenbeck. Dr. Hallenbeck is our Vice President of Student Affairs. He's been at Oklahoma State University since December of 2018. Prior to coming to OSU, he spent 4 years as the Senior Associate Vice President at Clemson University and 12 years overall within the Division of Student Affairs at Clemson. Dr. Hallenbeck went to Clemson after serving as the Director of Residence Life and Student Housing at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. Today I'm having a hard time talking, sorry guys. And he was there from 2003 to 2006, and it's there that he first picked up the title of Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs. He rose through the housing ranks at the University of Florida and here at OSU. He was Residence Director for 2 living communities from 1993 to 1996 in Gainesville. He then served as Residence Hall Coordinator, 96 to 98, and Assistant Director of Residential Life from 98 to 2003 here in Stillwater. He's an active member of the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators and has been involved in various leadership positions within the Association of College and University Housing Officers as well. He earned his bachelor's degree in psychology from Georgia College in 1991, a master's degree in counselor education from Mississippi State in 1993, and then he added his doctorate in applied behavioral studies from Oklahoma State in December of 2002. Thank you so much, Dr. Hallenbeck, for being here with us today. We are so excited to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Division of Student Affairs and how you see Student Affairs contributing to transfer student success?
Well, sure. First of all, that introduction just made me feel old when you start throwing in all those numbers in there, like 1991 and graduation and all that sort of fun stuff. But, I think, for me, the Division of Student Affairs, it's really, my role is kind of twofold. One is some level of responsibility for, students, regardless of whether they're involved in any of the certain areas I directly oversee. I think the entire student experience falls under my purview and somewhat my level of responsibility as well. And so specifically, obviously, within student affairs, we have both areas of support. We have areas of development, and we also have just services that we provide that allow students to kind of get through the day-to-day lives. So, we believe in empowering personal development through transformative services, experiences, and support. And that's true for transfer students and non-transfer students alike. We're really trying to create that sense of place, that sense of belonging, but also, if you need to see a counselor, you need to see a counselor. If you're hungry, you need to eat, we got dining. If you need a place to live, we have housing. All those different kind of components all kind of play within the overall student experience. Transfer students specifically sometimes feel like they're a little late to the game in accessing some of those services. Housing, for an example, because sometimes it's full by the time students transfer. But we can continue to kind of work or do our best to kind of work with transfer students, help them navigate the collegiate experience, help kind of figure out where to get both at the beginning of their time here, but also throughout the time, because that's the other piece of it that I hear sometimes from Cheryl and others is that, it's not just that first day that you step on campus as a transfer student. Some of those things that we do in orientations and others for our first year students may get missed by transfer students. We don't do a good job telling it. So part of the Division of Student Affairs job is to make sure that we're constantly putting that information out, helping students find the resources that they need.
For those of us that work in student affairs, there was at some point in our careers where we had that pivotal moment where something happened that made us decide, you know what, I want this career. I want to be working with students. I want to be hands-on, and I want to see them succeed just like I did. For me, at my undergraduate, I went to an undergraduate small liberal arts college in Montana. My dean of students there, he had no reason to know who I was. He had no reason to have any idea about me. I hadn't been in trouble. I hadn't been to his office. At that point in time, I wasn't even really that much involved on campus. But when I was walking across the plaza one day, he stopped me and he goes, "Cheryl, right?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yeah." And I was like, and I didn't know who he was. And he's like, "Hi, I'm Brad Nason. I'm your dean of students. And I just wanted to say welcome to Rocky Mountain College."
Nice.
And that one moment. Admittedly, it was a much smaller campus. There was only about 5,000 students. But that moment changed everything because I realized that the people at my college actually cared about me. This person who had this high level position, who had no reason to know who I was, made the time to connect with me, made the time to know what my name was, and made the time to get to know me for no other reason than he felt it was important. And that experience, along with my director of residential life, who we had at the time, who I worked for the majority of time I was in my undergrad, they really created that sense of belonging that I didn't have because I was 26 years old living in the residence hall. And I didn't have that sense of belonging. I felt like, why am I here? I felt very much like an imposter. And the imposter syndrome is a real thing for many of our transfer students. But for you, Dr. Hallenbeck, what was that pivotal moment for you? What made you decide that you wanted to be that person that was working with students and in the type of role that you're in now?
Sure. So, I come from a much different than that, in that my dad was in student affairs work. So I grew up, my dad was director of housing at the University of Georgia. I've been associate vice president of student affairs there. So my first job was painting residence halls at the University of Georgia when I was in the summers, from the time I was 16 to the time I was graduated college. So every year I kind of went back and did that. So that was one kind of those, seeing the impact somewhat of the staff that's there, the custodial staff, the maintenance staff that have on the facilities, the impact my dad had on them as their boss, so to speak. So that kind of helped a little bit there from the kind of the structural pieces. But then I also went to a small liberal arts type institution, Georgia College, where I was fairly involved. I was a cheerleader. I was a RA there. I was in a fraternity, so pretty kind of involved and engaged. I knew the president, knew who I was. The vice president of student affairs knew who I was. Sometimes I was good, sometimes I was bad, depending on, because he would always come up to me and talk to me about things that were happening on the floor. So I was an RA, so somebody did something, they kicked a hole in a wall, and why are you letting them kick holes in the wall and that sort of stuff. So kind of manage and deal with that as well. So for me, there are a lot of, I'm not sure there's one pivotal moment, a lot of those moments, and then being a psychology major, trying to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life, and realize that I like helping everyday people with everyday problems get through life. And so how do you do that? And student affairs work really provides that opportunity. So it was really a conversation I had with my dad, and he said, well, why don't you think about doing this? Why, you seem to like it, you enjoy it. You decided you didn't want to be a counselor, so what do you want to do? And so it kind of went from there. And so for me, that really started me on that path and that journey. And for a long time, my career goal is to be a director of housing, because that's kind of how I came up through housing, kind of what I wanted to be. And then I got to that, and then I thought, well, I wouldn't mind being a vice president, and then kind of worked up, and then had the opportunity to come back here. I lived here 7 years, my first 10 years. So I lived here in 96, 2003. And so it was just an opportunity to come back. Always loved Stillwater, loved Oklahoma State. People ask me, of all the places I've worked, which one do you like the best? I said, well, I've only worked at one place twice, and that's here. So I think that would be the answer to that question. So for me, it's part of the family business, so to speak. My daughter's in student affairs. She works in housing at Virginia Commonwealth University, so it's part of the family business. But on the other side, I was going back to exactly what you said, the opportunity to help people navigate life is really what student affairs work does.
Thank you, Dr. Hallenbeck. So the Division of Student Affairs is very large, and you did touch on some of the pieces like housing and counseling that are a part of student affairs. What are some of the other areas that you oversee as the Vice President of Student Affairs?
Sure. So, housing, residential life, talked about that. The student union, the largest, most comprehensive student union in the country. Dining reports up through student union, so dining reports up through student affairs, as well as all the events and conference services stuff. If anybody out there is in the esports is part of the student union as well. So kind of all those different components of that. The Department of Wellness, which includes all our different wellness promotion efforts, as well as the Colvin Recreation Center, all intramural sports, club sports, outdoor recreation, all as part of the Department of Wellness. University counseling reports up to Department of Wellness as well. Well, the Chief Wellness Officer, Dr. Meisner. So counseling is part of student affairs as well. So it reports up to me. Career services. So everything we do with career services, basically our centralized career services reports student affairs. Hargis Leadership Institute, which really focuses on leadership from both a pedagogical standpoint, but also a practical standpoint, how those two things marry together. We're actually working on and hopefully are securing the funding to be able to create. We have a President's Leadership Council for first-year students, President's Leadership Council. We're working on developing a transfer President's Leadership Council as well. You know, I think, Cheryl, you've been involved in some of those conversations over the years with Josh. And so that hopefully that's something that will be new that will come up through there. Have a dotted line relationship with University Health Services. They report up to the Center for Health Sciences for the medical pieces, but there's a lot of student-facing parts of that as well. So they report to me as well. And then Campus Life. Campus Life would include Campus Life, student support and conduct, reports up to Campus Life. Transfer and Veteran Student Success reports up to Campus Life. All student organizations, fraternity sorority life, all a part of community service, all a part of Campus Life as well. I think I got them all, but I may have missed somebody in there. But again, all those, as you can kind of see, some of it, a lot of it's about support, development, growth. Some of it's just about services, navigating the experience, and some of it's support as well, in terms of we all need help kind of getting through it. And so it's all part of the division.
Many transfer students and students in general, they really like to know who their leadership is, where their leadership is
Sure.
Located, and like to have the ability sometimes to just, walk in and say hi.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
for the Vice President of Student Affairs, what is your policy on students? Do you allow them to just walk in and say hi? What does that look like for you? What do you encourage students to do when they want to talk to you?
Sure. Yeah. We're in 201 Whitehurst. So anytime anybody wants to come by and walk in, say hi. If I'm not here, Debbie, my administrative assistant, she can kind of help. If you need to get on my calendar, set up a meeting, that's fine too. So I try to be pretty open, pretty available. So yeah, students can walk in. They can call, schedule a meeting, invite me to places. So if there's meeting organizations, you want to see me or you want me to come meet you at the student union, just let me know. I'll do that as well.
Fantastic. It's always nice to know how we can talk to you and get a hold of you. And for all of you students out there, just be aware that Dr. Hallenbeck is very friendly. He doesn't bite. If you see him on campus and you stop and say hi, he'll talk to you. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are some of the key things about student affairs and student affairs at OSU specifically that you think it's important for transfer students to know that maybe they won't find on a website or they won't find just in normal ways?
Yeah, I think, and you kind of hit on it earlier, that everything we do is for transfer students as well. We try to do a good job of pointing out this may be specifically important for transfer students, specific programs. Probably need to do better. And so that's, I think, part of kind of the growth and development that we'll do. But, really everything, transfer students can be part of fraternity sorority life if they want to. There's processes and ways to do that, not only in the fall, but also in the spring, and there's places to do that. There's opportunities for other student organizations that if you are part of a student organization at the school you're transferring from that we don't have and you want to develop it, let us know. We have processes to do that as well. So you might be saying, hey, I'm sure I can get 10 people that want to do this thing and you do that thing, or how do we create that? And so those opportunities. So the big thing is, especially from the campus life, student facing areas, involvement opportunities, you're an equal part of the institution, and don't be afraid to ask questions. It may feel like everybody else knows what they're doing. They don't. They're faking it just like everybody else is. And so I think being able to ask those questions. You can buy meal plans. Again, housing's a little bit tricky sometimes depending on when transfer students come because of the application times and our ability. But again, if we have it, we have off-campus student association, we have support there, we have our basic needs stuff as well. And so if you have any of those needs, all those services are available to all students. I would say in general, we have a lot of, whether it's our student support and conduct folks or our counseling folks, a lot of people that are there to help support all students and specifically transfer students, and Cheryl and her team. And so if you need something, if you have a question, you don't know where to find it, anybody within the division should be able to either answer your question or point you in the right direction. And if you ask somebody in the division, they can't do that, come to 211 Whitehurst, let me know who they were, and I'll fix that for the next time so we can kind of get them head up. But we're here. Intramural sports, being a part of the intramural sports, if you didn't, you transferred in and maybe you don't know enough people to be on a team, or it seems like all the teams are already selected. We have opportunities where you can sign up and get placed in a team and get several other people that are kind of free agents like you might be, and to be able to do that, or we might be able to connect you with the right people that are looking for somebody else to be on their team. So don't be shy. I guess that would be my big statement.
Thank you, Dr. Hallenbeck.
Yeah.
So transfer students come from many different experiences, many different lived experiences. They're incredibly diverse in who they are and where they came from. And that includes, in many ways, a lot of our transfer students are online only. And I know our online students sometimes wonder, well, do I have the same services?
That is an outstanding question. And the answer is yes and no. And the reason I say that is because the funding structure for completely online students is a little bit different than the fee structure of other students. So there's some things where the answer is yes, we're going to help you out. There's other things where it gets a little tricky. I'll give you an example of a tricky one. So if you're a completely online student and you live out of the state of Oklahoma, right? We don't really have in-person type with our counselors that we can provide you, because there's licensure type issues with once we cross state lines, for example. We have other options and some telehealth options that are more broad level, but they're there. But that's just one example where it gets a little trickier depending on who you are and kind of what those processes are. So, but I would say that if you ever any need and you're wondering, again, give us a call. And even if it doesn't quite fit into the meaning, you didn't pay a fee for that service, then we can try to figure out, like, you don't pay the wellness fee, and so for accessing the Colvin for online students. And so, well, we can help you figure out how to navigate that if you want access to it and you live in town, it makes sense. Just most online students, they're not necessarily in Stillwater, so why would they want to pay for the access to the Colvin Center? So things like that we just need to work out. But calling Health Center, calling us, help being a part of student organizations. There's some student organizations that you can be a fully online student and be a part of. And so all those things, I think, just all the campus life student programs and others, all those things are open to all students.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about Oklahoma State University is that we do a lot of things that are open to the public and allow children to be at. And a lot of our transfer students have families, they have children. How are some of the ways that we address bringing families into our community here and making them feel like they're a part of the Cowboy family as well?
That probably would be an outstanding focus group to have of the students that are in that situation to help us with. I mean, we try to be opening and welcoming and try to publicize when things are going, programs they're going to have when they're open to the public. And so what's available. It's just sometimes trickier than others on what that is. We do the Summer on the Plaza, which is over the summer, but we do the Summer on the Plaza, which is open to the Stillwater community. A lot of children, a lot of youth are there as well, and so that's one way that we can do it. We have other just generalized programs, activities that they're all part of it. Again, gaining access, figuring out ways to get access into the Colvin. We have Camp Colvin for the summer. But my guess is, when you asked me that question, my guess is we probably could have good conversations with our transfer students that have children to talk more specifically about that specific issue. Because I think what feels like maybe it's open on our end may not feel that way. I used to, when my children were young, they're all grown now, but they're young. I used to bring them to all sorts of stuff, but I was kind of the, boss in some of those things. And so, of course they were going to be welcomed a little bit differently than maybe if I was a student wondering if I could bring bring my child.
Well, I know one of the big events we have coming up here in just a couple of weeks is what we like to call, I know you know what I'm talking about, is America's Greatest Homecoming,
Oh, yeah, that, yeah.
which we allow our families to be at.
Okay.
What can you tell our transfer students about that experience, and why maybe if they're within driving distance, they might want to come visit and see this event?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is the biggest homecoming in the world in terms of just activity. We'll have thousands upon thousands of people here. We got fraternities and sororities putting up all these house decorations. They spin around. There's mechanical features. There's moving features. It's just amazing what they're able to put together. We'll have food trucks, I believe, and all sorts of stuff that are available for families. So I think if you've never experienced it, it is worth the experience and coming and walking around and just being surrounded by the enthusiasm and energy that relates to homecoming, especially during walk around, which is Friday night before homecoming. If you have small children, I would suggest you want to come earlier than later because it's just easier to navigate when the sun's still out and there's fewer people in the streets kind of walking around. A lot of families, a lot of children, a lot of people walking around then too, but it will feel pretty comfortable. If you don't have children, come back anytime, during the time it's open. Again, it's just a huge celebration and really a unique part of the Cowboy family. And then the next day, of course, we have a parade starting on Saturday morning. So being a part of the parade is just neat. Everybody loves a good parade, so that's always fun to be a part of as well.
Those are both fantastic. I've taken my son to walk around and to the parade, and I think it's a fantastic opportunity for our transfer students with children to go to. So I'm glad we got to talk a little bit about that. So what if there was one piece of advice that you could offer to transfer students in general, whether it's about working with student affairs or just college life, what would that piece of advice be?
Sure, I have a couple. One, I'd go back to what I said earlier. Don't be shy. Ask questions. Make a list of your questions. Make sure and be persistent. Don't, if somebody didn't answer something first, keep asking the question if you have it. I think that's just important in general in life. So I think being persistent and being able to ask questions, I think, is important. The other thing is, and you've already done it as transfer students, but I would encourage you to continue to do it. Find something that is outside of your comfort zone, that stretches you a little bit to grow and develop, and something that you probably will never have the opportunity to be involved in again. So whether it's one of our student organizations, whether it's an activity or event, something that you go, because when else are you going to do it? This is once you get working full time, you get busy, you're never going to go on an outdoor adventure trip, maybe skiing in Colorado, or you may never go to I went to the Harvest Moon Festival this weekend that our Asian students put on. Stuff like that. It could be just a little bit outside of what you've done before, maybe your comfort zone, help stretch and develop. You may find something that you're really passionate about that could become a lifelong passion for you. So that would be my advice.
Thank you, Dr. Hallenbeck. I always like to end these sessions on a smile. Whether that's with a dad joke, or you tell us your favorite thing, or you share a fun fact about yourself, whatever it is. So how would you like to end this session, Dr. Hallenbeck? How are you going to end us with a smile?
Sure. Well, that's a good question. I say dad jokes all the time. The problem with my dad jokes, they're kind of in the moment. I have a hard time thinking of them outside of that. So, my favorite dad joke is that, a termite walks into a bar, walks into a nightclub and looks at the guy behind the server and says, "Is your bartender here?" Termite, anyway, because they eat wood. The bar is wood. Anyway, so that's a bad dad joke. So that would probably be the best one I could come up with on the fly.
Well, that works. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think you said it earlier. I mean, in terms of, I try to be approachable. We're nice people in student affairs, and I think reaching out and saying hi to us, coming by, just telling us how you're doing, I think is important. Look for the stuff that we provide out there, especially for the transfer veteran services. Just make sure that if you get a chance to get involved, engaged, just do it. You know, Oklahoma State's a special place, but it's only special because of us and you. I mean, you all, in terms of the community, that we're all working in this together. And so whatever we can do to make your experience better, we're committed to helping. So let us know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Hallenbeck. It was a pleasure to have you here today on Oklahoma State Transfer Talks. And as always, go Pokes.
Go Pokes.